Hello guys, welcome back. So in this lecture we are going to solve, or we are going to create a function which will solve the knife search problem, okay, which we have seen in the previous lecture, right? So in today's video we are going to implement the knife search algorithm, okay? So make sure to watch the previous lecture right before this one in order to understand what is going on in this lecture, right? Otherwise you won't get any idea like what is going on here, right? So if you want to understand it completely, you have to watch the previous lecture, because there I have explained what is knife search and how it works, right? In this lecture, we are just going to see a question with the help of which we can solve the example which we were seeing in the previous lecture, right? So let's start implementing it. Okay. So in the previous lecture, I was saying I took an example of this string, right? Okay. And there we took this string as a pattern. Okay. So let's name it as pattern, right? Okay, and this is the text, we can say, right? Or let me zoom it. It's zoomed enough, right guys? Const text str, let's name it as text str. Okay, so this was a text string and this was the pattern, and we were checking how many times this pattern is occurring in this text string, right? So in this lecture, let's try to build the knife search string, okay, with the help of which we can solve this problem. We can see how many times this pattern occurs in this text string. Okay, so for that, let's create a function. Okay, so let's say knife string search, right? Knife string search, and then here we are going to pass this text string, or let's pass the text. Okay, and then we are going to pass the pattern, right? Because most of the times, like in most of the interview questions, like they used to mention it like this, right? Pattern. Okay, so that's why I prefer to use pattern here as a parameter. Okay, so now here what we have to do, first thing we have to do is we have to run a for loop to iterate through each character of this text string, right? So let's quickly create a for loop. Okay, so for let I equals to 0, I is smaller than, what to say, text dot length I plus plus. Okay, so here what will happen, it will iterate through each character one after another, right? So we will get the access on each character. Okay, now what we have to do, we have to iterate through this string as well, right? Okay, and where we are going to iterate it, because the idea was whenever we are looping through this array, okay, this string, right? So we have to match its first index with the pattern, this particular text, this sub arrays or substrings first index, right? And then the second index of this with the second index of this, then third index of this with the third index of this. So where do you think is the right place to like add a for loop to iterate through this particular text string, substring, we can say, or pattern? Okay, so the answer is within this for loop. Okay, so let me show you. So first let's see like what we are getting here. So text at position I and I. Okay, so let's add the knife string search along with the text string and then the pattern, right? So let's use this here. Okay, and let's just quickly inspect it, and I hope we will get it. Yeah, see, we are getting all this string along with these spaces as well, right? H is at 0, I is at 1, and then space is at 2, all the way up till question mark, which is 32, right? So we have access to all the characters which are there in this string. Okay, now let's loop through this particular string inside of this for loop. Okay, for let's use j equals to 0. J is smaller than, what was that, pattern dot length, and then j plus plus. Okay, so here let's do the same thing, and I have to tell you one thing, like here now we are going to get a lot of logs, because this loop is gonna run, I think, till the end of this string. I mean, like for 32 times, right? 33 times, because it's zero based, right? And on every iteration, this loop is gonna run for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, right? So on every iteration, on the parent loop, in the child loop, it is going to run 5 times, right? And if you know about for loop, then you will understand what I'm trying to say right now. Okay, so still, let's see it. Console log. So here we will use pattern, not text, at position j, and then the index of j. Okay, so here what we will do, here we'll just add a log saying child loop starts. Okay, or let's use some separator, and then here after this child loop ends. Okay, so as you can see, on every loop we are getting 5 iterations, right? And sometimes we are not getting it. Okay, for for this one we are just getting 1 iteration. Okay, see, for h at position 0, we got the child loop started, we got 5 iterations, and then for 1 we got 5 iterations. For 2, for empty space, which is here, as you can see, we got let me stretch it a little bit. Okay, okay, so here for space we are getting 5 iterations, and this way all the way up till end, right? For question mark we are getting 5 iterations, and the child loop ends, right? So now on every iteration we are getting 5 iterations, because we are running a for loop inside of for loop. So far so good, right? Now we have to identify like how we are going to compare this particular text index with this particular text index, or this particular text, right? Because if you see here, h is 0, h is at position 0, but here it is running for the 5 times, right? So if we are checking for this particular character, then inside this loop, which is for parent, which we are running for parent, it's zoomed enough, right guys? Okay, which we are running for parent. See here it is running for first character, and then it is moving on to the next character, and then it is moving on to the next character. Okay, but what we want is, we want to compare the parent strings character and the child strings character parallelly. If they are not matching, then only we have to move to the next loop, right? How we can achieve that? See here the index is 0, but here it is iterating to all the way up till 4, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so anyhow, like somehow we have to match their index in order to match the characters, right? In order to check whether the characters are matching or not. Okay, so we can do a little trick. What we can do is, see, pattern at position j, right? So it will be the index of the like iteration for this loop, right? Now in order to check this one, text at position I. Okay, so here what we can do, let's use I. Okay, so this is text, right? And this is pattern. Let me write it here. Okay, so right now we have added the console logs for the text and pattern. Okay, even though we were getting it here as well. See here pattern is the first character of the pattern is t, which is at index 0. Text is at position 0. Okay, h and t, they are not matching, but again pattern have moved to the next index, which is 1. At the first position we are getting h, right? If you see here, but text is still at 0. Somehow we have to move the index of text, right? See, every time h we are getting as 0 only. Okay, and in order to compare these two index, in order to match these two index, what we can do, can't we use I plus j here? Okay, this way what will happen? See, let me show you. See, now pattern T is at position 0, H is at position 0. Now pattern H, what was that? Pattern is at position 1 and text is at position 1, because here we are getting I right now. Okay, and let's use I plus J here, because I'm using I, so it's giving me the old index only, right? See, here is the answer of, like, here's the solution, here's the main solution of like how we are going to solve it for the knife string search, right? See, the index of pattern is 0 right now, index of text long string is 0. Okay, pattern move to the next iteration, which is 1. Now here text, its old index was 0, like it is in first iteration, okay, which is this one, but we have updated its index to 1. So text at position 1 we are getting I, which is this particular character. Okay, so somehow we got a hack to like move the parent strings index also along with the child strings index, right, within the child for loop, right? Because for every parent loop we are running multiple child loop sites, and we don't want that. We only want it to move along with the parent loop, right? So this is how we can check the characters of the parent string along with the child string, right? See, now if we move on to the index 1, which is the second loop of the parent, here we are getting pattern at position 0. That means we are again resetting it to 0. Okay, the child loop will start again from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So again, whenever we are checking from 0, text will be at position 1, right? So its index is 1, T and 0 is not matching. We are moving the pattern H, which is at index 1. Okay, so text will be also updated as index 2. Okay, because 1 plus 1 2, and then that means we are going to check from here I and space. Okay, because this is at position 2. Okay, so yeah, that's why we are getting empty space here, and then E for pattern, which is at index 2, which is basically this character 0 1 2. Okay, this particular character, right, this E. Okay, so we are joining this index and the parent text index. So 2 plus 1, I think 2 plus 2, no, oh no, 2 plus 1, right? So we'll get the index as 3. Okay, so we are going to check the third character from here I, because it is a second for loop. Okay, so I plus this plus this, so this is going to be 1 2 3. This is going to be the third index, which is T. Okay, that is why we are getting T here. Okay, so this way, along with the child loop, we are matching the characters of parent loop. Okay, now what we can do, so I hope this thing is clear, right? So how we can move the parent, how we can check the parent characters parallelly when we are running the child for loop, right? So here is a little thing to think right now. Okay, when we want this loop to stop, and when we want to check whether, when we have to identify whether we got a pattern or not. Okay, so in order to get a pattern, so let's create a const, or let's use let, right, because we are going to update it, patterns count. Okay, let's set it initially to 0. Okay, now if the j index, okay, j is equals to pattern dot length minus 1, right, because this is 0 based, minus 1. Okay, so in this case we will say like we found a pattern, right, found a pattern. Okay, so here we can simply what to say, increment the count of the pattern. Let's use patterns count plus plus. Okay, so this way what will happen, so here is a string which we are looping through, and then here is a substring which we are looping through. So we are matching first character with first character, then second character with second character, third character with third character. Wherever we found the complete match, that means if the pattern is reaching till the end of this iteration, okay, we are going to count it. Okay, so for now let's see like how it works. Okay, let's return it at the end, return pattern count, right? Because there is a little limitation right now, because we are going to see a little issue here right now. Okay, lg patterns count. Okay, so right now if you see, we are getting pattern count at 33, okay, which is obviously not right. And now let me tell you why. Because if you see, the child count is looping all the way up till the end, right? So this child pattern is every time looping through the end of this, like till the end of this pattern string, right? And we have to stop it at some point. Okay, if the strings are not matching, if the parent strings character and the child string characters are not matching, then in that case we have to break the loop somewhere. We have to stop it to loop for the next iterations, right? So for that, what we can do, we can simply write a if condition. If, let's say, parent at position I, it's parent, oh sorry, we don't have any parent, right? Text at position I is not equals to pattern at position, or text at position I plus j is not equals to pattern at position j, right? Because here we are summing up the values, right? So text at position 0 and pattern at position 0, 0 plus 0, 0, right? So that means we are checking the first index of these two strings. Okay, now if the pattern moves to the next index, we are checking 1, and here since it was 0, so 0 plus 1 will give us 1, right? That means we will check the first character or the first index of both the strings, right? That means I and H. Okay, if these two are not matching, then we simply have to move to the next iteration, okay, to check whether the next character is matching with the first character of this pattern or not. Okay, so what we will do in this case, we'll simply break out of this loop. Okay, so if we had a break, then what will happen, it will simply stop the for loop for this current iteration, right? And it will jump to the next for loop. Okay, it will jump to the next complete for loop. That means the j's index will be again set to 0, right? This is the thing which you have to keep in mind. So let's add a log here quickly. Loop stops here. Okay, and where the loop is stopping, let's see, text at position I, and then here basically we are checking which particular character does not match. Okay, and where the loop actually stopped. Okay, and let's remove these or just comment these ones, because right now we are getting bunch of console logs, right? And that's not good. Loop starts here, loop starts here also, we are getting somewhere child loop starts, and loop starts here. Okay, so this one also I don't need, I think, or do we need it? Text at position I plus a. Okay, this one we need it. Found pattern, and then pattern dot count, we are console logging here. Okay, let's log the pattern count as well. Okay, let's cut it here and paste it here. Okay, now what is happening in this for loop? Okay, so we are looping through the child for loop, and then here we are checking if the text at position I plus j, and I hope by now this I plus j is clear for you guys, right? So if the text at position I plus j, which is the child loops index plus the parent loops index, okay, if this particular text is not matching with the text at position j in pattern, okay, that means we are not getting the same characters in parent string and child string. So we are stopping the loop, we are breaking the loop. Then what will happen, it will again jump into the next iteration. Okay, so let's see from the starting. See, for the first loop, which is this parent loop, okay, we started one iteration which is at index 0, okay, which is from this character. Okay, and here loop starts here, we got h and t at position 0 for these two strings, right? For pattern and the text, right? H and t, they are not matching, so we stopped the loop. Okay, child loop ends. As you can see, child loop ends here. Okay, loop stops here. See, in the console log itself, it is saying loop stops here. Since the h and t are not matching, we are stopping the loop. We are moving to the next iteration. Okay, so next iteration will be I, right? That means we have moved to the next iteration, next for loop for this I index. That means second index of the parent string, right? Now, for this parent loop, again we are going to run the child loop for 5 times, or let's say if it runs for 5 times or not. Okay, for I, we are again running the child loop, and the first index of I, we are getting I, and the first character of the pattern, we are getting T. Again, these two are not matching, so loop is again stopped. Okay, we are restricting it from looping all the way till the end, right? Now we have moved to the next character in the parent loop, okay, which is empty space. So obviously it is not gonna match with this one, so it will again stop empty space and T, right? So again we are jumping into the next what to say, next loop, right? Next iteration. Now here we have T, right? So right now in the parent loop we are in the iteration for T. Okay, so T is the index 3. That means in the parent loop we are at the index 3 right now. Okay, now child loop starts, child loop is running, and we found a pattern. Okay, that means it went inside this particular if condition. Okay, that means here we found all the characters H, T with the T, H with the H, E with E. These three are matching, and then R is also there, which is matching with this one, and then E is again matching with this one, right? So that means we found a complete pattern here in this parent string, right? So that is why the loop never broken down, and then it went inside this particular condition where j is basically reaching till the end of the string, right? Till up till here. So j loop is basically reaching till here. So if it is reaching here, the j loop, that means the child loop, that means we are saying we have found a pattern, right? Because here we have already restricted it, right? Here we have already restricted it. If the first character itself is not matching with the first one, or any of the characters are not matching, okay, even if the last character is not matching with the last character of the parent string, okay, then also we are breaking the loop. That means end of the day it is not going to reach the end of the uh, end index in the child loop if the pattern, if it is not finding the complete text, the complete pattern in the parent string, right? And now if it is finding the complete pattern, that means it have reached till the end of this child text, right? This parent text, if it is reaching here, that means we have found a complete pattern. Okay, that is why I have wrote this condition, like if the j index, which is this child loops index, right, if it is reaching till the end of this parent dot length minus 1, okay, minus 1 because it is 0 based, right? Length will give you like somewhere around, if it is 6 characters, 1 2 3 4 5, it is 5 characters, it will give you 5, right? But j will give you 4, right? Because it will count from 0, right? So we'll do length minus 1. Okay, so if it is matching with this length, then we will say like we have found a pattern, and then we are incrementing the count of this particular pattern. Okay, so yeah, this was the knife string search in a nutshell. Okay, and if you want, you can also come up with a better solution. Okay, I chose this one because this one was straightforward, at least simple to understand. And if you want, if you are interested in it, then you can go ahead and solve few questions related to knife string search as well, right? So now let's see how many patterns we have for this. There, as you can see, it is highlighting 2 patterns, right? So end of the day we should get 2 patterns. Child loop ends, and then let's see patterns count, right? Let's wrap it in a string so that we can see how many characters we are getting. Okay, so patterns count we are getting as 2 here. Okay, so for timing, let's disable the console logs wherever we are getting it. Okay, and here also, Let's remove it, this one as well, so that we can only see the pattern count right now. Okay, so as you can see with this text we are getting the pattern count as this. Okay, now let's try to check for high, or let's see th, how many times th is occurring, or what we can use there, right? He is at one place. U, okay, so this one we can make use of, right? So this is also appearing for 2 times. Let's use this. Okay, so again we are getting pattern count as 2 because u is appearing 2 times, right? Let's use some character which is occurring only once. So let's use this r. Okay, so since r is only appearing once in this particular parent string, so we are getting pattern count as 1. Okay, so let's use another one, high. High is also, I think, appearing once only. Okay, so for high also we are getting pattern count as 1, and then how is also once, u there. Let's add some more characters. Let's say yes, yes, yes. Okay, or let's add these two somewhere here. Okay, and this one I'll put at the last. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, so now I will check for this pattern. So yes, as we already know, it is coming 3 times in the parent string, right? So as you can see in the pattern count, we are getting it thrice, right? That means it is able to find the patterns, like how many times it is appearing in the parent string, right? So this way we can implement the naive string search approach. Okay, so if you were coding along with me, then I think you might have wrote already, or in case if you didn't understood at any point like what happened, then you can simply rewind the video and you can check it. Or by the way, I'll attach the code snippet at the description. If you want, if you're interested in, you can go and check the description and then you will find this snippet as well. Okay, so this is it about the naive string search. So from tomorrow's video onwards, we are going to learn about the what to say, sorting algorithms, because so far we were learning searching algorithms, right? So we were passing some input and we were searching it somewhere in the, be it array, be it object, be it string or whatever. Okay, so we were writing some searching algorithms so far. Okay, so from tomorrow's video onwards, we'll be focusing on the sorting algorithms. Okay, because they are also some of the crazy stuff which we have to learn and which is important to learn, right? So this is it for this video. See you in the next one.